And the news is back. We're here to talk about all the stuff you need to know, everything that's going on in Krakow. Well, not everything, but close enough. I'm John, that's Josh. Dave is out this week. A little bit of a vacation for Dave. He's on the beach somewhere. Josh, can you imagine Dave on the beach?
I would rather not.
Yeah, trying to imagine. I don't think I've ever seen him in shorts. I could not testify in a court of law that he has knees because I've never seen them. So I just can't imagine him, hitting the surf. I'm just going to leave that out there. I don't know. Any comments on that? No? Okay.
Whoosh, yeah.
No. Well, anyway, Dave's back next week. To step in for Dave, if that's possible even, to help us out today with the news, we've got a good friend of ours coming in to give us his take on things. Dr. Mike, old friend of ours, local guy. Would you call yourself a local guy, Mike?
I think I would, yes. Hello, everybody there. Greetings and salutations.
We call him Dr. Mike because his name is Mike and he's a doctor, so it's pretty straightforward.
Works that way, yeah.
And we hope, we'll hope he'll be a frequent contributor to what we're doing here. Mike, tell the millions of people listening a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've lived in Krakow for the better part of 20 years, but before that, lived in Australia as a kid, grew up in the States, Chicago, D.C., so I'm one of those Polonushi kids, but one of the few that actually came back to Poland.
And you're an actual doctor.
Yeah, like finished med school here. The program for foreigners, the one that everybody thinks of as a Norwegian program.
Yeah.
It's not the Norwegian program. It's the program of medicine in English for foreigners. 6-year program, graduated that, and been working in the field more or less for the last 10 years now.
So if any of our listeners are too cheap to go see an actual doctor, they send us a message on Facebook with a description of their problem and some pictures. We can forward everything to you.
Exactly, yes.
Take care of it? Okay,
I even do house calls, but yeah, you have to have your own gloves.
All right. Oh, on that note, let's get to the news. Interesting report put out this week by the Polish Ministry of Sports and Tourism. Now, let's pause right there for a second. We've talked about this a little bit before on the show. Why is there a Polish Ministry of Sports and Tourism? Any idea? Why do we have? What the hell do they do all day long?
Well, my main guess would be that unemployment is always an issue here, so they need to create another ministry to hire a couple
Doesn't
thousand
it say
people.
Something that two things is utterly different as sports and tourism were combined into one ministry? Each one separately is not worthy of their own ministry. They have to get together and share the offices. That's really weird. Anyway, as the name would suggest, the Ministry of Sports and Tourism put out some numbers on the tourism industry, and we found out that last year, just over 18 million tourists visited the country. 18 million tourists. That's more than Croatia. Surprised? Croatia and their beaches. All of Europe goes to the beach in Croatia, and Poland still got more.
Surprising.
You guys can jump in anytime.
Yeah, well, hey, I have an excuse. I'm new here. I don't know the legal nuances of how. But no, my question would be where are these tourists coming from and how are they counting them? I'm guessing you have that information ready for us because that makes a difference.
I don't, but I am curious about the methodology. I'm very curious about the methodology here. What counts as a tourist? Because in different kinds of reports I've seen before, they say that to be a tourist, you have to have an overnight stay. That's the definition of a tourist, an overnight stay. Now, how they verify this, I have no idea.
I mean, you have besides the hotels, you have all the Airbnb, Booking.com kind of places. Do they count those? Do they know?
I have no idea. But, Poland is kind of a special case because of the geography. What about all these day shoppers from Germany, from Ukraine, from Belarus, from Russia, from Czech and Slovakia? These people coming over here to, do a bit of shopping. Do they count as a tourist?
Or what about all the people from northern Poland going to the mountains, like the drive-by tourists? Are they counted as well?
I think this is international only.
Oh, okay.
International only.
Well, I mean, they photograph everybody who goes through the airports, don't they? So it's probably just.
But not everybody's going through the airport.
Yeah, but I suspect that you scratch the surface of this, and it's surprisingly unsophisticated data gathering.
Yeah, possibly, but again, 18 million sounds kind of.
Or just pulled out of their ass.
Here's the interesting part: 18 million tourists, as I said, more than Croatia, more than a lot of other European countries. But Poland makes less money from tourism than let's say
more strip clubs.
Let's say Portugal. Portugal has fewer tourists, but makes a lot more money from tourism than Poland does. That tells me that the average stay here is very short.
very
People are not
short
here
and probably
long
don't
enough to
have
spend
that
money.
many occasions to actually spend money, as in opportunities. Like, what are you going to spend money on here? Beer and, like you were saying, strippers. That seems to be basically what Krakow is all about right now.
Well, part of that also, let's be fair, a tourist to, for example, Stockholm is spending a lot more money on a hotel room.
And a beer.
Or to Oslo, they're spending, it costs $5,000 a day just to live in those places. And so that has a lot to do with the fact, that the average amount of money spent per tourist is lower because it's a lower priced economy.
Right.
So that's part of it as well. But just surprising. I think a lot of it is this as well. Tell me what you think, guys. Someone goes to, let's say, Spain to France. That's a 1 week holiday easily, right? Typically for visitors to Poland, and this is consistent with my experience kind of working in the tourism industry for a while, Poland is a 2 or 3 day stop for most people on a package tour, for example. They come here from Budapest, from Prague, from Berlin, and they're on their way to someplace else. Krakow is typically their one Polish stop, so to speak, because of its, because there's a lot to see. It's a beautiful place, of course. Auschwitz, I know, sorry, it sounds crass to refer to Auschwitz as a tourist attraction, but let's be honest, it is for a lot of people. So it seems to me that that's part of the reason, too. People spend 2 or 3 days here before they move on to another country. This is not a 1 week destination for most
So
people.
this 18 million is for Poland as a whole. Does it break it down? I mean, because I would suspect that a very, very high percentage of foreign visitors to Poland come here
Yeah.
over even, well, more so than Warsaw.
Yeah, sorry,
And,
Katowice. I don't know how how the numbers break. Yeah, we get the lion's share, I'm sure. But you know what? Again, if you got really detailed, I think you'd see a lot of visitors in these border towns because, again, they do come for shopping, but they're not a tourist in the...
Well, not on Sundays anymore.
Not on, we'll talk about that.
Some Sundays. If only
Sundays.
you can be sure which Sundays.
But do you think for the casual tourist, wrap it up with this question. For the casual tourist, is Poland a 1 week or a 10-day destination?
It's a weekend destination. I mean, unless you have family here and because you're, an expat or something like that, then no, I can't really see somebody coming here for more than a week.
Josh?
Yeah, I agree with Mike.
That seems to be the case, yeah. Unless you have family connections here, some kind of deep academic interest in some aspect of art or architecture, geography or something.
But, if you took away all France's beaches, then you'd be left with Paris.
Well, that's the thing. Paris, or Spain, they have the cities, they have beautiful small towns and villages. The beach is a big deal. And for Poland, again, either Warsaw or Krakow, more often Krakow, is the one stop, and then they move on to Budapest or Prague.
Yeah, and you're not going to go to the beach in Poland. Of course, I mean, there might be nice days, but you're not going to plan a 1 week vacation on the Baltic. If you're going somewhere, you're going to Croatia, you're going to southern France, Portugal, Spain. Nobody in England is thinking like, I could really go for some nice hot summer weather. I'll go to northern Poland.
Yeah.
Hit the highway to hell,
The
yeah.
lovely Baltic, yes, exactly. Moving on, leaving tourism behind us, let's go to Slawkowska Street. For those of you listening who might not know, Slawkowska is one of the main streets that leads off the square. It goes north and hooks up with Basztowa and the top of Długa Street. It is the last, or maybe one of the last street that is yet to be renovated. Over the last, 7, 8, 10 years, pretty much every street in the center of town has been renovated.
Shevska still.
Shevska's been done.
It's been done.
Shevska's been done.
Still got tram tracks
Well, I think they leave those there as
for
kind of
aesthetic purposes, yeah.
Yeah,
for bicycles.
they look cool. Yeah, it'll help us out. Yeah, a little helpful trap for cyclists. But Slawkowska Street finally getting its turn in a couple of weeks. They're going to start a renovation. Anyway, it's interesting because originally the plan was to line Slawkowska Street with trees. Now, I'm not sure if they were trees, like in the ground or a kind of a planter. I'm not sure. There was a visualization in the paper. It looked like kind of a hybrid between those. They were like low. You saw it, Josh.
Yeah, like kind of concrete boxes with small, elegant little trees in them.
Are we talking about the kind of boxes they have all down like Dietla Street, those kind of concrete, hideous things?
I'm not. No, a little more than different. I mean, the tree looked like in the visualization. It looked like the tree was in the ground, but it was also elevated a little bit as well. So hard to explain. Anyway, one way or the other, trees. And I first noticed this about a year ago. It was in the press because the city had to get approval or get an opinion from UNESCO because the entire center of town is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, right? And as such, there are very strict protections and provisions about what can and cannot be done to change its appearance. And so they got an opinion from UNESCO. UNESCO basically sent it back to Krakow saying, you make your own opinion. We'll defer to whatever you think. And just last week, someone called the Conservator Zabytków, which, how would you translate that? It's like the protector of historical
Stuff.
Basically, yeah, that sounds right.
And just, the overall historical nature of the center of town. It's a man. It's a person. He said no. He decided that no, Slawkowska Street cannot have trees, and the reason given was because Slawkowska Street has never had trees, and so it would be too much of a change in its character to go from no trees to trees. And so we'll get a renovation of Slawkowska Street, get a nice new street with those nice little bricks they use and the nice street lamps, but no trees. What do you guys think?
Wait, did they always have street lamps there as well? We're talking 15th, 14th, 13th century?
I don't know. Probably not.
No, the logic here fails me.
Logic is questionable. I mean, if you look at pictures from the main square as recently as the 40s and 50s, there were lots of trees on the side with the statue. Now there are trees everywhere. Now there are no trees. So according to the conservatoire, there should be trees there today to preserve the nature of the...
Slawkowska's probably, arguably, the least appealing of all the streets that lead off the main square. So maybe...
Fighting words there, John.
Well, you know...
Bring it on.
Offer up competition.
I think, that's okay. Maybe Bratska is questionable. But, it's different.
That's barely a street anyway.
Yeah, it's tiny.
And Nim.
But okay. So it's all right. Maybe. I'll give it
So yeah, why not stick a few trees there? Give it something. I mean, it'll make it so much easier for the tourists, won't it? Instead of saying kind of like, yes, just take a ride off Plac Szczepański.
And go on Slawkowska.
The one with the trees on it. You can't
the tree
miss
street.
it.
I think it would look nice with the trees, Mike.
I think it would look fantastic. And trees aren't permanent. If they decide after a year or two, now this isn't working, it's not a big deal to put them down. They're not dogs. Get rid of them.
They're not dogs. They could be useful for dogs, though, wouldn't they?
And for English tourists, That street usually smells like this anyway.
Yeah. This idea, what do you think about the idea that everything has to look the way it has always looked? I mean, where's the balance between the legitimate need to preserve the character of something, the street or the whole city, and the need to be flexible and kind of make some changes?
Where do you draw the line? I mean, I hate Hotel Fordham, the way it's just standing there falling apart. And this is a building that I used to think was from, the 60s or 70s. Then I found out it opened up in 89.
That's right.
When I moved here, it was 10 years old. Mm-hmm. It was technically a new building. Galeria Krakowska is now older than it was then.
I agree with you, but because of where it is, that's outside the Stare Miasto, so kind of different rules apply.
Yeah, it's like a big FU to UNESCO, isn't it?
But the hotel...
Advertising Żywiec.
Not hotel. I think the building is called Phoenix. It's on the corner of Jana.
Yeah.
And it's from the 30s. It's this horrible...
Oh, Phoenix. Oh, that's fantastic.
It doesn't fit at all. It stands out like a sore thumb. But that's okay. Somebody okayed that 80 years ago.
I don't remember the name of the architect, but he's quite well known. I think it's the same architect that did like the Poczta Główna, the building right next to that, like the bank on Villa Pole PKO, which is also now standing open. It was like an architect who was really famous in the 20s and 30s, that kind of neoclassical. I have no architectural background here, so I don't even know what it's called. But it was quite impressive for its time. They wanted to keep those buildings, but Phoenix is like the one on the square that just kind of sticks out.
Sorry to use a cliche, but again, going back to this decision about rejecting the trees. Sorry to use a cliche, but why is it okay if we have McDonald's and Hard Rock Cafe and Starbucks and all the rest of it? That's okay somehow, but planting a tree is something that we have to consult UNESCO about, and it's rejected because it just doesn't fit. Does this make any sense?
Well, to be fair, you mentioned McDonald's, but I mean, as I think you've been to McDonald's once or twice in various places in the world.
Maybe, I don't remember.
You'll notice that they're generally characterised by their bright red and yellow signs and with yellow arches. And in fact, there's only a very few places in the world where they're not allowed to do this, and they restrict you to kind of gold lettering. And
doesn't really stick out here. That's a good thing.
A simple bronze sign, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Plus, we also like Hard Rock Cafe, McDonald's. They make money. You can, well, money doesn't grow on trees.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
Yes.
Well, anyway, like I said, look for a big pain for commuters to show up on Slawkowska Street soon. They're going to start digging stuff up. I'm sure it'll be nice when it's all done, but no trees. No trees. Speaking of problems in the center of town, this is something we touched on a couple of times, I think about a month or so ago. This is one of those issues that simply won't go away. It's hard to imagine that it will ever get approved, but we're talking about a ban on bikes in the Planty. This is back in the news this week. There is a sizable minority in the city government that's really pushing this through. They will not take no for an answer. And again, it's hard to imagine that Hard to imagine that that it will ever get the majority needed to become law, but it's also, again, got enough backers to keep it in the news. Let's start at the big picture level. Can you just imagine it being illegal to ride a bicycle in the Planty?
A boy can dream. I'd love to see that, I'll be honest.
Really? Make your case there, Dr. Mike.
Well, first, the main issue of bicyclists and pedestrians is like whenever you have them in one place, let's just be honest, they don't get along very well. Neither the pedestrians never pay attention to which part of the path is the bike path, which part is the, walking path. Bicyclists, same problem. They don't ring the bell. They come up at you, from behind 30 kilometers an hour.
Bicyclists can be assholes. Let's be honest about that. Yes.
And the Planty is like a very nice, sedated, quiet place where you just want to stroll with your family, with your friends. And people on bikes are usually using it as just, a way to get from point A to point B. Mm-hmm. And Krakow right now, the whole construction that started around the Planty with all those streets being renovated, the whole idea was to make it, one way just for trams and as a route for bikes, to get bikes off of the Planty, to make that more of a pedestrian kind of strolling area for parks, like a park area.
So to kind of suggest it, but you not force it. Make it easier for bikes to stay out of the Planty.
If you're biking through town, then you go around on the actual road instead of going onto the Planty.
Which is very sensible, actually, because, if you ride a bicycle, then you really don't want to take any longer of your journey than you have to. And
if you're on the road, you don't have to worry about pedestrians getting in your way. It's like if you're using it as a mode of transportation, then it makes a lot more sense to use the road.
Isn't it safer for the cyclist to be in the Planty rather than even? I know it's a dedicated bike lane, but you're still next to cars in the street, so aren't they better off in the Planty?
Well, then what about the pedestrians? It's like it becomes that hierarchy. Who's safer here? It's like, of course, when a bike hits a pedestrian, it's less likely to be a serious injury than when a bicyclist gets hit by a car. But if they're making separate bike lanes, then I think they should be sticking to it.
Josh, sorry to cut you off.
No, I'm good.
Josh, where do you stand on the bike banning?
Well, I ride a bike a lot. I cycle in the Planty. It's convenient for some destinations. I would be disappointed, but I suppose I would learn to live with it.
Yeah, I can't see this happening. No matter how irritating it is, and I'll be the first to admit that cyclists can be complete assholes. I would consider myself a cyclist. Very, very much my primary mode of transportation in town. And it irritates me to see other people on bikes, zipping past and between people. It's very unsafe, especially around kids, but around anybody, really. And just being irresponsible. They're almost inviting this kind of hate and abuse by the way that they ride in the Planty. So I hate to see that, but on the other hand, I just can't imagine. There's so many people on bikes now that even though there is a bike lane all the way around, it's hardly sufficient to handle the capacity. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that nobody rode a bike in the Planty and everybody would use the bike lane. It's not big enough. It's not wide enough. It's simply not practical. So I don't see a middle ground here.
That's the what do they call them? Vavello, the rental bikes.
Yeah.
They're hugely popular. that really, for some reason, that has whoever the company is doing them now, that's taken off. A couple of years ago, it was.
And to be fair to the city, and I think we can all agree that over the last 3 to 5 years, the city has done lots and lots to help out in terms of new bike paths all over the city, in the center of town, outside the center.
Allowing us to go the wrong way down.
Yeah, I was about to ask a cyclist, what do you think of those contrapasso? It just seems like a suicide booth.
Yes, some streets, and it's awkward. It's like that on Copernica. And sometimes you get, even cyclists don't know how to use them sometimes. Cyclists going the wrong way in the
cycle lane.
What's it called? The cycle lane?
Bike lane, cycle lane.
Whatever.
Contrapasso,
you're not going to get a perfect system anywhere. But again, the city government has enough people to keep pushing this. And it's one of those issues where the people, even though they're a minority, they are a determined and vocal minority. And so, Mike.
Just one quick question. Can we agree, though, that it would be really great to ban all those freaking segways?
Hate for the segways, huh?
Hate for the segways.
But you mean in the Planty or just generally?
Well, generally, yeah, but I guess we could start with the Planty. Have to start somewhere.
I don't hate the segways. I kind of laugh at them. I feel sorry for people on them. You look ridiculous on a segway, let's be honest.
Yeah, you look like an idiot or a douchebag. So combination of both.
But you have safety concerns, or where's the hate?
No, I just don't like them. I think they look like idiots.
Yeah, they do look like idiots.
Yeah.
Do you have to wear a helmet on the Segway, or is that just like the...
It might be recommended.
I believe it's just like with bicycles, that once you're over 18, it's like your own call.
Well, anyway, get on your bike, ride in the Planty while you can, because who knows, it might come to an end one day. Last thing we're going to touch on the news today, a report that came from the government, the Ministry of Digitalization. Why it's from the Ministry of Digitalization, I have no idea, but...
Why not sports and tourism?
More useless government agencies. What do they do all day? Anyway, they published a list of every name, and I mean every name, given to children born in Poland for the first 6 months of this year, the first half of this year. And some surprises on the list. It's a very long list. As I said, even if one kid was given a certain name in the whole country, it made the list. So it takes a while to scroll through it. We'll put a link to the list on the show notes. Josh has got the list over there. Josh, let's start with the girls. Give us the first few names at the top of the list for girls, and we'll stop there.
Okay, well, heading the list for the first half of 2018 is Zuzana with a massive 4,258. Closely followed by Julia, or as we say in English, Julia.
Susanna, Julia? Yeah?
Yeah, then Zofia. Maya. Maya.
And number 5?
Hannah.
Hannah. Okay. Let's stop there for a second. I know for a fact that Susanna, Julia, and Maya, and Zofia, the 4 of the top 5 have been at or near the top for about the last 5 to 7 years. So... Is it still a trend, or are we beyond the point of being a trend now? When it's 7 years old, is it still a trend? I don't know.
I kind of trying to think how it works. I mean, is it like you think, oh, what a lovely name, I'm going to call my daughter this, and then that you're absolutely fine with it until they start school at age 6, 7, and then discover that every other girl has got the same name.
It's a fact, and the same applies for boys. We'll talk about that in just a second, but the same applies for boys. Kids under the age of 7, 8, 9, a good half of them are named.
And
the girls are, the half of them are named Julia or Zofia.
Is there a class kind of divide on this, or are there?
I'm guessing there are going to be a lot of nicknames like Zuza, Zuzanna, Julia, Julka.
Julia 1, Julia 2, Julia 3, maybe something like that. Okay, scroll down the list, Josh. Give us some random favorites from the middle or the bottom of the list. That some names that the girls got in Poland last year.
Blanca.
Yeah.
Some of these are repeated. All right, no, it was Helena and now Elena.
Different spellings maybe as well.
Agnieszka is way down with just 126.
Now stop there for a second. Agnieszka, the whole country, 126. That's not a lot. We were talking about this before we started recording, that there are names like Agnieszka, Monica, Anya, give me another one, Elżbieta maybe, that seem to have really dropped off in popularity over the last 10 to 15 years. Mike, do you get this feeling as well?
I agree completely. I mean, and what we're saying, 126 Agnieszkas in all of Poland this year?
That's nothing.
If somebody told me in all of Krakow and Małopolska, that would sound about right.
Yep. And this is a name that, going back 30, 40, maybe 50 years ago, Agnieszka was one of the top 5, I'm sure, right? And now it's barely in the top half, I think, probably in the bottom 20%, yeah? So, things are changing. Let's go down to the boys. Josh, tell us about the boys.
Okay. Sorry.
It'll take a while to scroll down.
Sorry, Luisa, Dagmara, Evelina, Angelica,
spelled
Clementina.
Actually, Angelica is one of those names that I think is hilarious because they never know exactly how to spell it. In English
they don't
or in
hear
Polish.
either. Yeah. Okay.
Kind of like Brittany, there's 50 different spellings of it.
Okay. Oh my God, a lot of...
Almost there. A lot of names that got 2 or 1 use.
Cyrilia. Okay, imiona chłopców.
There we go. Top 5.
Okay, number 1, Anthony. Number 2, Jakub. No surprise there. Number 3, Jan. Shimon, Alexander, and Franciszek.
Yeah, Franek is a big one the last 3 or 5 years.
Sort of a papal influence there.
Bloated, yeah, that's true. Okay, same thing. I'd guess minimum 40 to 50% of all boys in Poland under the age of 5 are named Kuba. Only a slight exaggeration. Mike, is sticking with tradition a good thing? Because in Poland, even though there's been changes on this list, most people still have a name taken from a certain pool of names.
Or
right?
a family member, like somebody.
Exactly. So good to stick with tradition, or is Poland kind of behind the times with kind of updating the names used for, names?
Well, Tradition has its place, I guess, but it does make names kind of boring. Though there are a lot of like foreigners coming in here, like marrying off Polish girls and stuff like that. And then you get kids being given English names. They don't know how to spell it. Plus, funny story, 10 or so years ago, my mom is in a grocery store. She just sees this older woman, guessing the grandmother, calling after a kid. She's calling after this kid, Yames, Yames, Yames. Yeah, it took my mom a moment to realize, yeah, it's James.
Yeah.
This grandmother whose, daughter or son had married a foreigner had named their kid James, and she's just saying it in Polish, Yames, Yames, and it just sounded
Can't blame her. That's what it is when you read it the Polish way. I mean, it is. What do you think about? And I saw these names at the very bottom of the list that we're talking about now. What do you think about the old school, and I mean old school Polish names for boys? All the names that end in Slav, basically, Miroslav, or Mir, or the names that end in Mir. It sounds like a badass knight from the Middle Ages or something like that.
Krzeszimir in 11 instances.
I think there's something cool about those names. But for other people, I think it's cool if you name your kid that, but it's not for me.
Okay, I'll just say that I've noticed we're now in the single digits at the bottom of this list. I've just noticed Maximilian with an X, 9 instances, which compares very unfavourably with Maximilian with a KS, which is in at 1,408 near the top of the list.
There's a huge range there.
I think the same difference applies to spellings of Alexander as well, with the English style X and the Polish K.
I mean, I would have stuck them all in the same spot, just like different spelling.
Yeah.
Because it is the same name, really, just different spellings. But again, this list is very precise and it breaks it down by spelling.
And just we have Matthew, Modest, Zach.
Wait, did you say modest?
Yes.
Modest?
Yes.
That's not a name.
It is. There was a pope.
There was a Pope Modest, yes.
Okay,
Okay, go a bit further down the list. What else do we have?
Melchior, one of the 3 wise men. Wojtek, which is an abbreviation, isn't it? And it's a familiar form, yeah.
A diminutive.
Yeah, Joseph. Shibor.
Wait a minute, Joseph, what's the spelling of Joseph?
J-O-S. Ah, yeah, right. Excuse me. Axel. There we go. Axel Zaveri. Now, that's an old Polish name,
I like
isn't
that
it?
name, Zaveri. How do you spell it? X-A...
A-V-E-R-Y.
And how many kids got that name?
Well, there's no letter X in the Polish alphabet, so it does make it a bit of a struggle.
Oh, that's true, too. What, two kids?
So no wonder iPhone sales have been so low here. Yeah.
We're all over the place today.
No entry for Dwayne The Rock, though.
Mike, let's talk about your theoretical kid here. Is there any chance you'd give him one of these old school Polish names?
No, if I were to have a kid, I'd give him a name that kind of works internationally. So I wouldn't want to give them a foreign name, but I would want to find like that short list of names that can be spelled in English and in Polish, just for practicality. Plus, I'm not into like weird names or like digging to the bottom of the barrel to find something.
that leads to a related question then, and feel free, anybody can jump in on this. Okay, there's no nice way to say this. Is going to sound offensive in a way that I don't mean it.
You mean it in another way, yeah.
Is it in our international integrated world, or where technology brings everybody together, and you can be born in one country and go to school in another, and work in a third, and make a life in a fourth, et cetera, et cetera. Are you giving your kid problems in 2018 if you name him Regisław? If you name him Grzegorz, even
Zdzisław.
Or Zdzisław, are you giving him a headache in the future by saddling him with that name now? Is that a problem?
I would say so, yes. I mean, take it as you will, but this is an internet-connected world. People travel. It just makes things simpler. And when you're naming your kid, you have to take into consideration a lot of things. Like this name...
Interconnected was the word I was looking for, by the way, but yeah.
His or her name will be, literally the first thing people find out about them.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want that name to stick out a little bit so they remember it, but you don't want them to have trouble spelling it, or like you have those CVs in front of you. It's like, I can't pronounce this, whatever, screw that one.
Now, isn't that somehow unfair to Poland and Polish culture that, because there are a few too many Z's here and there, that it just makes it hard for everybody else. And so Poland's under some obligation to make it easier for people outside of Poland? That's not fair.
You still have a choice, but let's be honest, life's not fair. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Deep here, life's not fair, Josh.
Bushmen names. Can we...
With the clicks.
Yeah. Marion, that's a good name, isn't it? John Wayne's real name was Marion.
If we're talking about John Wayne and
that's my
Bushman,
grandfather's name.
I think that's a sign that we've kind of run our course here. So there you have it. Tourism to Poland, Slawkowska Street, bikes in the Planty of Polish names. I think that pretty much wraps it up.
No Nazis this week.
No Nazis this week for the first
Until
time
right now, yeah.
first time in a month. Everybody, don't forget to go to Facebook, give us a like, make sure you follow us, get updates on the KrakCast, and also remember that you can contact us by going to our website, krakcast.pl. Contact us via our Gmail account, which is listed right there. See you next time on the news.